Okay, let's talk about some stuff. Some guys are asking about shorter antennas. Stock antenna. You can see how tall that one is. This is on the 87 that I've been working on. I don't know where the guy got it, but it's on there. It's probably a foot shorter, and it clears the garage door while it's up. So anyway, we were talking about sticky cables, or cables that we're binding up, and the free play on the throttle. What you want is your throttle to be able to move back and forth just a hair. There's a spec in the manual. I'm not sure what it is, but just I think it's like 1.5 millimeters or something like that. You should be able to wiggle it just back and forth. If the cables are too tight, you see how this rattles around. If the cables are too tight, what they do is they pull on the pipe, the plastic pipe that rotates on the handlebar, and that creates excess friction and drag, and they don't want to roll as easily. So if it rattles around, and you can wiggle it back and forth just a hair. This has got iso grips on it, so it the ends are a little funny. So, but it still moves back and forth and wiggles around. We go back over here to the 87. Nice and loose. If you're not sure, the jam nuts are down here underneath. What you would do is you take a 10 millimeter wrench and back off the jam nut. Let me see if I can find a 10 millimeter wrench. Oh, there we go. 10 millimeter wrench. Screw the jam nut in, and then give this barrel nut, turn it in, a half turn or a turn, and see if that improves any. See if that, because you want your throttle to snap back like that. Hang on one second. When you rotate the throttle, you may not be able to. You see that screw back in there? See how that goes up and down all the way across. You might be able to see way back in there. 3 more of them moving up and down. What you can do, it's not a real good test, but if you push that down with your finger, which will move the throttle back and forth while you're doing it, you might be able to feel something funny down in there. What happens is the clamps on this boot, on the 4 boots that run all the way, on the 4 intakes. What happens is when you tighten up, what happens? Yeah, we'll cut that out. As you're tightening up that clamp and you're pushing against the screw with your screwdriver, it wants to rotate around. And Carl says that when it comes around too far, the clamp that sticks out on the back side can interfere with the rotating of the throttle valve, and so you want to double check. You should be able to look, 2 on each side, 2 from each side. Loosen the clamps up, make sure that they're pointing straight down or slightly out, and when we pull the airbox off, you'll be able to see why that's important. As far as cable lube, there's all kinds of different lubes. PJ1 makes lube. This is the tool that you would need. Get under the light here. What it is it's got a little hole. Actually, we'll come back out here. It's got a hole where the little red straw, you would poke that in there. Your cable goes, the outer casing would go in the big hole. The inner cable would come out this hole, and you'd clamp it down. It's all rubber seal all on the inside. And what it does is it seals off this end and is open on the inside, and you spray or inject the lube straight into this hole, and what it does is it pressurizes the cable and forces the fluid all the way down inside the cable. Ideally, you would want if you're spraying in this end of the cable, then you'd want to be able to see this end, or technically be this end on that coupler. You spray it long enough to where you see a little bit of oil coming out the end of it. But the end of this cable here would have to fit tight on the inside of this, otherwise the pressurized oil would just blow out around the outside of it and not get shot down on the inside. Some of the guys that have compressors, what they do is they'll shoot, they'll use this tool, they'll shoot some oil in there, and then they'll take their air hose and blow it in, which is a much greater pressure than what you could get out of a spray can, and then it'd shoot it all the way down through the outside. This is the coupler assembly. You've got the throttle cable and the cruise actuator cable that run into it, and this is the cable that attaches to the carburetors. And if this is working right, when you push in this cable, the springs on the inside shoot it back out. Just like if you were to pull this cable, see how that moves down there, and you let go, it shoots it back out. And like the one that was on Rick's bike, somebody had messed with the inside of it to where it was actually pulling the cable back in, and that was fighting. Even though it's not very strong, it was just enough to, with everything else going on, it was just enough to cause the throttle assembly to hang just a bit, to where it was like idling at 1200, 1300 instead of where it was supposed to be set. But you can push that one in, and it'll spring right back out. You'll have to take this apart in order to take the cables out, in order to lube them up right. I'm not going to cover that here, but it can be a little difficult depending on if anybody's ever messed with the cables down below. You may not be able to turn that. You'll need some extra slack in order to pull the ends of the cables out of their little spot, and you may not have, if somebody's ever messed with the carbs down below or had the carbs off and turned the adjusting screws out, you may not be able to get all the slack that you need here in order to pop the cables off inside. Generally, it's probably not too big of a deal, too much of a problem to get that done. But you don't have to take the air box off to lube the cables off, to lube the cables up. But if you take this apart, you lube the cables, you put it back together, and it still doesn't snap back like it should, then the next step is pretty much taking the air box off and double checking everything down there.